Hello everyone, and welcome to F4S Digital Events and today's Maths for Girls Masterclass. Our guest speakers joining us today will be telling their career story and sharing their experiences, and then we will invite the audience at home to ask questions. My name is Neelam Jagate, and I will be hosting the session today, and we hope to support students to make informed decisions about their future by offering career lessons and guidance. To the audience at home, your audio, your video and chat function has been disabled for safeguarding purposes, but you can still interact with us, and please do so by using the Q&A box. And we are recording the session. It will be featured on our YouTube channel. So please sit back and enjoy the webinar, and do make some notes as well if you like. So as you know, this is a Maths for Girls webinar. A very quick overview for anyone who's joining us who's new to Maths for Girls. Maths for Girls is a project which is designed to help us replace the fear factor around mathematics with enjoyment, and inspire girls and boys to excel at maths and to consider maths beyond GCSE, and potentially to consider having a career in the world of maths or STEM. So if you're at home wondering if you've got any questions about maths or anything to do with the speakers' careers, please ask the questions in the Q&A box, and I will be asking those questions later on in the webinar. So thank you so much to our guest speakers. I know you're all really busy, so thank you for joining us today and for giving up your time. We really do appreciate it. So we'll be hearing from you next. So welcome to Malar Velaigam, Skylar, Montgomery and Catriona, McGill. I'm so sorry if I've mispronounced any of your names. And over to you. So what we'll do is each of you will spend sort of 7-8 minutes talking about your career journey and just your sort of life story, and where you started off and how you got to where you are today, what it is that you do today. You can speak a little bit about your previous roles and your experiences growing up around mathematics. Did you love it at school? Did you hate it? What were your experiences? And don't worry, you don't need to present anything at all. We just ask that you speak from the heart. And what I might do is I might sort of nudge you when it gets to sort of 7-8 minutes, and then we'll move on to the next person, and then we'll open it up to our audience, and then I'll close the session. We have scheduled an hour in case the Q&A runs, but if it doesn't, we'll kind of cut it at maybe 45 minutes to give us all enough time. So Mala, would you like to kick off?
Hello everyone, my name is Malar and I work in institutional equity sales, which is just a fancy way of saying I try to make people buy little pieces of companies. And it's quite funny because, well, it's funny now, but I used to hate maths so much. My mum would come down and say, go and learn your times tables. And I'd go in a corner and I'd cry because I didn't want to do it. And they always talk about it. They even talk about it at my weddings. It was really funny for everyone that I hated it so much. And it's interesting because everyone else in my family loved it and they were really good at it. So I thought to myself, I never want to do anything to do with maths, and I hate maths, and I'm never going to grow up to do anything to do with maths. I want to be a writer. And so I carried on. I worked really hard, but somehow did okay in maths and managed to get decent grades, because it's funny about maths, because the more you do it, it actually can kind of get good at it. And then suddenly you're getting them right, because there's just a right and a wrong. It's actually quite binary. So I managed to do okay in it, and I ended up studying finance, which is again completely by accident, as I didn't know what I wanted to do at uni, and I was going to a private university abroad, and you kind of pay for it. So my dad was paying, and he just said, I'm choosing what you do, because he was being really bossy and mean. And he said, you're going to do finance or accounting. And I just said, I don't know the difference. And which I didn't. And the dean was there welcoming everyone, because they just want, you know, money. And she just said, oh God, you talk so much, you can't be an accountant. And that was it. So I went and studied finance, and it was really it got worse, because by the second year, I kind of liked it. And it was a lot of maths, but it was stuff that made sense. It was just working out little equations and then putting them together, and it was part of a picture, and it was still part of a story. So I still got the English bit, because finance is kind of, the way I would describe it is, it's math with reason and a story behind it. So there's a reason for doing this, and this is why you're doing that, and this is why you're buying a company, and this is why you're not, which is why it works with what I do today. But And so I graduated, I ended up interning and then junioring in an investment bank, which is what everyone who does finance does. I didn't even know what I was doing then, to be honest. And because you're 21 and you graduate and you're very young, you don't really know what you want, which is totally normal. I sort of just went in and did as I was told. And as a junior, what you're told means making lots of presentations for other people to present. And you just don't go and you don't watch and you just do all the work. And it was very depressing. So I decided to call it a day, and I wrote to a local, kind of like the FT in Asia, which is where I lived in Kuala Lumpur. And I said, I want to be a writer. I always want to be a writer. Rah, 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 rah. And that poor man, the editor, he met me and he hired me probably because I was a bit mad. And it was a bit racy to be a writer, a journalist in Asia, because there's a whole different world of politics there. So I did that, and I finally got writing out of my system. And after a few years, I ended up moving to London, carried on writing, and I joined a firm, an FT company called Investors Chronicle, where I wrote about investment ideas in tech, media, and telco, which is like 3 really cool sectors, because technology is basically how we live and how we're even doing this right now. And I got quite obsessed with technology, and I got quite good suddenly at writing and using maths to kind of determine whether something was a good investment or not. And it was just basically looking at whether something is going to go up in terms of its share price, which is its value, and writing a story about it and trying to get someone to invest. So it worked out really nicely. I did that for almost 5 years, fell in love with tech so much, set up a tech business also for the FT. But eventually, all these analysts that I met in the city, and an analyst is basically somebody who is, their whole job is to find the value in something. That I knew them in the tech sector, they were saying, you should come into equity sales, you know all the companies, you know how to value them, you should do this. And I'm like, you should join a broker. I was like, oh, what's a broker? I don't even know what they do. And then I met the CEO of finnCap, who is a woman, and she is still, till today, one of the finest women you'll meet. So I hope you do get a chance to meet Sam Smith. I went into that meeting saying to my husband and my family, I don't really want to do this job. I'm very comfortable just writing and working from home and doing nothing. And I met her, and you know, it was just so inspiring. She actually said, I just want you to prove that mommies can do this job. So I had 3-year-old twin girls at that time. And then she's like, there's not enough mommies in the city making a buck, walking around in orange heels, because that's what I wore, because I have no shame. And so I started my journey at finnCap, and I've been there for 7 years. What the job is effectively trying to find money for a company so it can grow. And it's, you know, you figure out how are you going to value this company, and that's the maths bit. And it's just looking at how much is it worth. So how do you figure that out? You look at the sales, how much money do they make? What's their costs? How much cost they're incurring? And how much profit can they make once you take that away? How fast are the sales growing? What's their market like? Are people really buying this product, or are people really using this service? And is it growing? Is it growing internationally? And what are the competitors doing? And you use all of this information to figure out how to value something. And then you think, oh, that looks kind of cheap. And you make a story around it, and you craft a narrative, which is what we call the investment narrative. And we talk to fund managers and investors and try to get them to invest in the company. And the company gets loads of money, and they can go off and grow. And how do they grow? They either buy another company, they hire people in sales, or they go and make an office in Singapore. So there's so many ways about doing it. And it's quite interesting because I've never used so much maths before, and no one thought I would. I didn't think I would. So I love doing these talks because I always think it's really important to know that whatever subject you think you love or you think you hate, it doesn't have to define the career that you do at all. And it's just funny how we think, I always say, oh, I love English and I hate maths. I'm going to be a writer, and I'm going to write like Emily Bronte and Charlotte Bronte, and I'm going to talk about classics and about insufferable people and all this. And I hate maths so much. But in the end, I think writing is quite different. It's there's a place for it, and I do use it, but it's very different from what I do and what I thought I would do. So never close the door on what you think you want to do just because of the subject. And that's also something quite weird about maths, is it's one of those things that the more you do, the kind of better you get at it, and you realize where the parameters are, and you can actually just work within them and actually do quite well. And once it makes sense, you figure out that you're not bad at it anymore, and then everything changes. Was that fast enough? I tried.
Absolutely brilliant and really good timing. Thank you very, very much. I think what I really enjoyed about your story was the fact that you're managing to do both. And I think, you know, there's this sort of conception or this sort of idea that you can either be good at maths or English, and it's never the two. And you've quite beautifully combined the two. And it seems to be English, you know, and writing is one of your passions, and you are really good at maths. So I really like that. And also, one of the takeaways is just a subject that you really enjoy doesn't necessarily define you. And I think that's really it's quite inspiring, and I really hope that the audience at home can resonate with that and have learned something. So thank you very much. We're going to move on we'll go with Skylar next, but then we will come back for Q&A. So yeah, let's take it away. So Skylar, how about you? Tell us a little bit about your career, where you started off and how you got to where you are, and a little bit about your experiences around maths.
Yeah, sure. So I work at Citigroup, which is a big investment bank in the United States. It could probably be compared to HSBC here, or something along those lines if you're British. I'm Canadian originally, so I came over for university. In my role currently, I work on global macro strategy and asset allocation, which is a big, big fancy title. But it just means that we look at trends in markets or economics. So that's like growth. What is growth this year like versus growth last year? Or how much does something cost today versus how much did it cost last year? And how that transfer to markets. And so we also look at stuff like the coronavirus, how that affects markets. And we also look at, you know, China trade deals. If Trump tweets something, that affects what we do a lot as well. And by markets, I mean the same in terms of equities. So we look at equities in terms of companies like Morrison's and HSBC again, but we also look at FX, so the currency that you use every day. So we look at every asset and we look at how they interact, and we try and figure out where they're going to go and make recommendations based off of that. And so there's a lot of math that's used there in terms of the analysis. It's everything from simple maths to how much has this price gone up or gone down, to more complicated maths that are statistics and regressions. And so you can say something about a relationship. If one thing does this, then another does this. So in the same way that, you know, people are happier when they sleep, you could make some kind of model of, you know, if I sleep 8 hours, I'm a lot happier than if I sleep 2 hours. So we do that just on a more complicated scale to figure out where the price of an equity is going to go, or along those lines. And then we write it up. So part of it's also communication and writing skills, and then we present it to investors and people who are looking for ideas of where to put their money, and we talk about it and present it. So it's a lot of different skills combined together. For me, growing up, I really liked maths. I thought it was really logical. I'm really, really bad at languages. So for me, I took a lot more science and math classes growing up. It was also just something I was more aware of. My mom has an engineering degree, and she really encouraged me to do maths. Growing up, I went to an all-girls school as well, and I think that encouraged me quite a lot to do math and sciences more. And when I was in high school, I had an economics class that was available to me, and I'd been reading books like Outliers or Freakonomics. And I don't know if you've heard of either of them, but they kind of think of they're cool ways to look at the economy and the world in ways you wouldn't expect. So one example from Outliers would be that people always think that there are less taxis when it's raining. And in actual fact, there are less taxis because taxi drivers usually have a quota for the number of people they take every day, or the number of money or the amount of money that they want to make. And so on days when it's raining, they get more people that take taxis, so they reach that quota earlier in the day, and there are actually less taxis. So it's looking at those kinds of relationships and figuring out the answer to those questions that really interested me in economics. So I took economics as my university degree. I came over from Canada and I studied at St. Andrews. I also did math in my first 2 years because at St. Andrews, for the most part, you pick 2 subjects that you study, and I thought maths was a good way to go along with economics and help my understanding of economics. So then in my 3rd and 4th year, I switched to just straight economics. Throughout that, I kind of thought to myself, you know, if I'm interested in economics, what can I do with that? And finance was an explanation for me that made sense. The only thing I knew of finance, though, was investment banking, which I now know that would be a very bad place for me. But at the time, I just applied for loads and loads of spring internships, which if you're going into university is something that I would really think about, because it's a great way to get an understanding of what roles are available in finance. So I did a spring internship, applied for loads and loads, managed to get 2, one of them at Citi. From that, I did a summer internship at Citi. From that, I did a grad position at Citi. And from that, I now have a permanent job. And, you know, along the way, I worked on several different teams, trying to figure out, you know, what I liked best, you know, sales roles versus trading roles versus research roles. And for me, the research was a good combination of still doing the analysis that includes the math, the speaking skills and the writing skills, as well as, you know, development of your own opinions and that kind of thing. So I'm really enjoying my role now, and that's what I do.
Thank you very much. I've actually got a question that I want to kind of just go straight into, Skylar, if that's okay, because it relates to what you've just mentioned regarding the internships. I have an anonymous user, so an anonymous student saying, is it possible to get an internship at an investment bank? I like the idea of this, but don't really know that much about it. So could you just sort of sum up your journey about how you went about getting an internship and some advice for maybe a 16-year-old out there who's interested in pursuing that in the future?
Yeah, so if you're looking for a spring internship and you're in university, it's usually after your first year if you're in a 3-year program, or it's after your second year if you're in a longer program. And so you do it in your second or third year dependent. And it usually the applications close around January the year before, and it will align with what your spring break is or your March break or whatever it may be, so you don't have to take any time off school. It usually involves some kind of numerical testing, as well as some kind of like strategic thinking testing, that kind of thing, that you do on the computer. You'll do a phone interview as well, and then it'll be a CV and a cover letter is generally how the investment banks do it. What I also would say that is a lot of investment banks, including Citi, if you're looking for placements earlier, they do placements for school age students. So I guess high school would be equivalent to like 14 to 16-year-olds. And so I think we do those during the summer, as well as occasionally like one-off weeks. But I didn't do that myself, but I did the spring internships. And from the spring internships, if you do a good job, then from that you do another round of interviews, but it means that you don't have to do another application for a summer internship. So you can go straight from the spring internship to the summer internship.
Brilliant. I hope that was helpful. Thank you very much for answering. So we're going to move on to Catriona next, and then we'll go into the Q&A, and I'll kind of ping across to each one of you. Catriona, take it away. Same for you then. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do now, how you got to where you are, and your experience around maths.
Definitely. Cool. So, hello everyone, my name's Catriona. I am the Technology Development Manager at a small startup called Desolinator. So I start with my career journey from school. So I picked science and maths for my A-levels, and I got to my last year at school and I knew I wanted to go to university next, and I had no idea what I wanted to study, what I wanted to do, what I wanted to spend my time doing. So I knew I was quite interested in maths and science, and felt like I was quite good at it. And it seemed to me that engineering was the application of science and maths to the real world, which I think is actually the good way of describing what engineering actually is. So I got to university and I studied general engineering, which is a 4-year course where the first 2 years you study a bit of everything. You study a bit of civils, mechanical, electrical, and then you specialize in your 3rd and 4th year. So I actually found engineering really hard and really just full on. I found it really difficult, and none of the different disciplines actually really appealed to me that much. So I specialized in something called manufacturing engineering, because that's what my best friend Bridget chose, which is a terrible way to make important life choices, and I would not recommend it at all. But luckily for me, it worked out really well, and I ended up absolutely loving manufacturing engineering, knowing nothing about it, because when you think about it, you know, everything is made. So this computer I'm talking to, or the bookshelf behind me, or the door handle, you know, everything is made in a factory or some kind of factory somewhere, and you can specialize how the way your product is made in the factory, or the way your product is designed, and that's what my course is all about. So I graduated, and I very naively, again, knew nothing about the world of work. I didn't know anything, what kind of jobs existed besides kind of accounting or the big corporates like, you know, BP or Unilever or consultancy. So I knew I wanted to work in London because that's where my family and friends were based. So I applied to loads of consulting firms and found one that would have me. And they did, so it's actually not really engineering related, it's more energy industry business related. So this small company helped energy companies make big decisions. So one example would be if they found some oil, if it was an oil company and they found some oil, should they develop it into a really big project or a small project? And it, you know, would depend on how much money they had at the time, how many people they had free, and those kind of decisions. So whilst you know, it was a brilliant learning opportunity, and you know, starting the world of work was great, I was actually pretty rubbish at the job, and I also joined the energy industry just as the oil price went from really, really high to really low, which meant that actually quite a few of the projects that my company was working on finished, and there wasn't that much work to do. So I, after a couple of years there, I knew I wanted to do something a bit different, and I was really missing the engineering side of things. I wanted something a bit more technical and also something a bit more meaningful to me. So I applied to loads of things, got rejected by almost all of them, which with hindsight is a blessing because I love what I do now. And I found this company that I work for now called Desolinator, and I took a huge pay cut and joined a very risky company where they had very little funding, and I started as an intern in my mid-20s. My parents were not very impressed, but after 3 months as an intern, I absolutely loved it, and I knew I wanted to stay, and I just tried to make myself as invaluable as possible so they couldn't get rid of me. So 4 years on now, that's where I still work. And so what do we do? Desolinator is a clean technology startup that's looking to develop solar-powered desalination technology. So desalination is where you take seawater and you take the salt out to make drinking water. So why would anyone want to do that? So only 1% of the water on our planet is what you call sweet water, which is water that you could drink. So it's kind of water from the rivers or from the aquifers. But in lots of places around the world, there's not much of this drinking water available. So instead what people do is they turn the seawater into drinking water. So the problem with this is that it's very, very energy intensive. It takes a lot of fossil fuels to desalinate water, which means it has a really big carbon footprint. And as you know, climate change is an issue and we're all trying to reduce fossil fuels use. So my company is trying to do this desalination process using solar panels, but in a clever way. So we use not just applying the electricity from a solar panel, because, right, I've got enough time, I'm going to tell you a bit more about what how our solar panels work.
Please do.
The average solar panel is only capable of turning 15% of the solar energy it receives into useful electricity. The rest of the 85% is wasted as heat. So what my company has come up with is a special version of a solar panel that produces electricity, and at the same time you run water underneath it, which heats up the water. So the panel both produces electricity and hot water. And then we take all the hot water and we collect it. So you've got several of these panels working together. You heat up, you collect all this hot water in basically a kettle, and then you take the electricity the panels produce and you heat all this hot water that's already at say 95 degrees, and you heat it just enough to turn the hot water from hot water into steam. And then you can collect the steam and condense the steam, and that becomes distilled water, which you can then remineralize and drink. So my job is to manage the development of this technology. So, you know, at the moment we're building our first pilot. So we're working on all the small engineering details. So how big are the pipes that connect the panels? How big is the tank that the water's stored in? And then if I bring it back to maths, I was trying to think of some, concrete examples of, I use maths every day, every single day in all my jobs. And I try to think of some specific examples of where I've used maths in the last, few weeks. So the first example, we had to work out what was the height of our solar panels for some paperwork that we had to do. So I literally used trigonometry to work out how high the top of the panels were, because we were specified that the bottom of the panels are 1 meter off the ground. We know the best angle for the panels to produce the most electricity. So for us, that's about 8 degrees. And we know how long the panel is. So if you put all of those things together, try to draw it, you know how long the panel is, you know the angle, and you know that we specified it to be 1 meter high, and then you can work out what this height is. And then another example is, we need to calculate how much electricity the different components use to work out how many solar panels we need. So if I know that my kettle unit needs about 1,000 watts, and I know that each of my solar panels produces 200 watts, then I can calculate, work backwards and say that I need 5 solar panels to be able to produce all of the electricity I need for my boiler unit. Okay, so that's what I do. And I would say really maths and the ability and the communication skills to be able to explain what the maths means are the 2 most important skills I've developed and use in my job now. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Catriona. I'm so sorry I mispronounced your name. What a fascinating career choice. Did you always know that you wanted to do this? Did you ever imagine at school that this is the job that you'd be doing?
No, I had no idea desalination even existed until I started this job, which is very embarrassing, and you should all know what it is.
Well, we do now. Thank you very much for sharing. So we've actually got quite a few questions. Let's go over to the Q&A from the audience, and then I've got a couple of questions for you all as well. So please feel free to unmute yourselves, and let's have a look. So we have a student saying, I'm not great at maths and can't understand what my teacher says. Do you think if I got a tutor, I might get better? Malar, can you take that one?
I wasn't great at maths, so yeah, I'm all over it. I had a tutor for a short period of time when I was doing my A-levels, and I didn't actually find it very useful. I think it's better to have a group, and what helped me do better at math was actually there was a boy who sat next to me in my math class, and I hated him, and we never spoke to each other, and I was like, why are you sitting here? I'm saving it for my friend. And it was like a point to prove where he wanted to sit there. But he also was in English, and he was bad at English and I was bad at math. So we called a truce, and he would help me with math and I'd help him with English, and we both got A's by a miracle. Wow. But it was also because we were so competitive with each other, because we sort of hated each other, but we wanted to do well. And it was really good because there's someone there to explain it to you in the words that you kind of want it to be explained, but is also in the class with you. Mm-hmm. And I found that to be a lot more helpful than having a tutor, which is someone who's almost talking at you, because it's not as agile and conversational as you need maths to be. Mm-hmm. I mean, some people do well from tutors, but personally I always like to understand the reason why rather than how to answer something, and then you can figure out things on your own. So I would think about getting a good group, or finding a couple of people who are good at it and who are willing to share that knowledge, which I know is hard because some young people are just mean, but there are others, and you can, I think it's probably a bit better. And I have daughters who are not 3 anymore, and they have tutors, and I like them to do it together, because the competitiveness makes them work hard and want to do better. And when they do it separately, they just get a bit slack, or they kind of zone in and out of the session, and I do see it. So I would think probably better to have a group. There are group tutoring things available as well that I've seen, so maybe look into that.
Excellent, that's great advice, thank you. And how about Catriona or Skylar, do you have anything that you'd like to add? How about, and I know there's some people sort of refer to people as tutors, and other people refer to people as almost like mentors or life coaches. Have you ever had a mentor? Skylar, can I come to you? So have you ever had a mentor? How was it? Would you recommend it for perhaps a 16, 17, 18-year-old?
So yeah, I mean, I didn't have an official mentor really until I got my current job. I'd say, you know, as cheesy it is, my mom was probably my mentor before that point in terms of she doesn't work in finance, she works in another field, but you know, I'd write my applications and she'd read them over for me and give that kind of input. Because I think no matter what, when you're applying for jobs, it's good to have a second pair of eyes, just even for like grammar and editing and that kind of thing. City does a really good job that when you join as an intern, they give you a buddy right off the bat. And so I got a buddy when I was a spring intern that was also my buddy in the summer program, and you rotate on a lot of different desks and you get to know a lot of different people that way. And she kind of guided me in terms of figuring out where I wanted to end up in the bank in general, which I thought was really helpful because there are so many roles you can do, and I didn't really know what any of them were. So she helped me meet more people, but she also helped me understand what each role was. And then when I got settled in my role, I got another mentor within my department. And he now helps me in terms of, you know, things are quite uncertain with us all being at home. So from everything to like my goals, my career trajectory now, to stuff like, well, how do I actually work efficiently if I'm working from home? Or how do I communicate with my team and help people who are more junior than me, but also make sure that I'm getting learning and development from people above me. And so, I mean, if you can get a mentor, I would really advise it. And I think no matter what, the people around you and your family, or if you know people at school, if they're able to provide that kind of support, it's great in any case.
Thank you. Great advice again. Catriona, I know you were nodding. Ben, anything you want to add?
Ooh,
Use a mentor. Have you ever had a mentor? Would you recommend it?
Again, as only once I started my career, I'm struggling to think about how you would go and find a mentor whilst you're still at school or still at university who's somebody's got completely different ideas, and I don't know. But yeah, since I've started my job, I have had a mentor, and is a coach.
Right.
And I find so useful. Just someone who replays, you know, what you say, and they're like, let me just tell you back what you've just told me. Is this really how you feel? And just sort of question, you know, is this the job I want, or is it time for me to ask for a promotion, or those kind of questions.
Sure.
Or even, you know, I've got this problem at work. How can I deal with it best?
Mm-hmm. And actually, I mean, my background actually is teaching, and you know, I was teaching in a sixth form college for quite some years, and a lot of, I mean, we kind of introduced a mentor sort of scheme, or like a buddy scheme, where the year 12s and year 13s were mentoring the younger children. So, I mean, my advice there would be to ask around your school, because chances are there is something already set up. Ask your pastoral, you know, leaders or the career advisor team, because I'm sure there'll be something available. But yeah, I think it's a great idea. And like you say, when you're in the workplace, you know, it's equally just as important to have either a coach or a mentor, someone who you can sort of lean on and say, can you look through this? And yeah, that's a great advice. Thank you. So next question. This is a very, very common one. So I'm really curious as to what you have to say. I don't know what I want to be. If I take maths, will it help me have a better choice? Who should we go to? Anyone itching to answer that one? Go on, Catriona. Thank you.
Absolutely. I can't think of a single subject that would be more useful to you in any field you could possibly want to go. I can't think of a single subject that would give you more choice than doing maths.
Nicely put. Thank you. Next question. Do you need to be good at all types of maths? I like problem solving and logic, but not great at other things. Interesting. Marla, would you like to take that one?
I would suggest, if you like problem solving, I think you could generally figure out the rest of the whole math universe, because that's generally what you're doing. So I think you're just trying to label what part of it you're good at and what part you're not. And I don't think you should close the doors to yourself like that. I often think that, well, maths is, pretty much all of it is problem solving. So you're trying to get an answer and you're trying to create a solution for something that's presented in front of you. Every little thing we do actually has a bit of maths around it, and you don't realize that you're doing it. And that's the kind of beauty of maths, which is probably why Catriona said definitely study maths. Totally on board with that. But you shouldn't close the doors. If you like the problem solving element, you probably like quite a lot of pure maths, I would think. But then again, you know, don't just think about math in the label sense of it. Maybe think about physics, because that's a lot of problem solving and a lot of maths, but it's just not called maths.
Sure.
So maybe think about it like that.
Okay, thank you. Another question is quite similar to what we've just addressed and what we've just touched on. I can only study a certain number of subjects and need to make a choice between computing science and maths. What should I do? Skylar, do you want to take this one, and then we'll go around if anyone else wants to jump in.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I find that quite hard because I don't like computer science whatsoever, so I'm biased in my answer. What I will say is math has a lot of transferable skills. So something I learn in math can help me in computers, it can help me in physics, it can help me in chemistry, whatever it may be. I also would hope that there's a lot of opportunity for you later to study coding or computer science or that kind of thing. Whereas I think a foundation in math you can build upon, and every year that you go by, it kind of builds in on itself. Whereas I don't think, you know, if you don't do computer science now, you can't do it later.
Sure.
I found at university, the courses that were available to me, I was told as an economics major to take both math and computer science. So definitely both useful, but I think it's easier to go from math to computer science than it is to go the other way around. So my preference would, or my advice would probably be to go for maths first, but it's also what you like more, and they're both very useful skills.
Yeah, and I suppose you need to listen to your gut at times, don't you? When you need to think about what you're most passionate about and what you actually enjoy, and what you see yourself doing as well. So again, great advice. Anyone else, do you want to jump in, or should we move on to the next one?
I would second exactly what Skylar said. I agree.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Before starting your job, did you have any passion other than maths? And I know we've touched on a few here, but any other subjects that, you know, were you contemplating between the two? Or I know, Malar, you've spoken about your writing and your passion for writing and things like that. So before starting your job, any other subjects that crossed your mind and you had to kind of debate the two? Or did you just know that it's maths? Who wants to go first? Catriona, do you want to go?
Yeah, I really liked psychology, actually, but similar to the maths, computer science, I think the maths and science is much easy. It's really hard to learn it outside of school or university, in my opinion. And obviously I'm never going to be read anything high level in psychology, but there's lots of books I can read about it. And so similar to the computer science question, you know, you can learn computer science online, or it'll come out later in life. And I think the maths gives you the basics. And also, with this comment, I probably wouldn't say I was very passionate about maths when at school at all. And that's only something that's really happened later on in life. Now I really appreciate how useful it is.
Thank you. Anyone else? If you're debating between two subjects, I know we kind of spoke about the computing science, and anything else you want to add, or should we move on?
Yeah, not really. I wasn't very good at much else.
Yeah. I would add, like, to maybe just keep an open mind and learn about as many different jobs as you can. Because when I was very, much younger, I always thought I'd be a lawyer or a psychologist, because that's what my mom and my dad did. And I was like, that's all I know. Besides what you see around you, you know, that you see doctors and teachers. But you don't really know about all these other jobs that you find out about when you grow up. I met someone the other day who does weather science. I'm like, what is that? Because we predict the weather. And then we bet on energy prices based on what we think the weather's doing. I thought, that is really cool. I didn't know that job existed. So there's all these super cool jobs out there that you just don't know about. So go to all the career fairs that you can, all the stuff school organizes for you, and they get loads of people in to talk to everyone. Don't just talk to the person that you think, oh, I want to be a nurse, I'm just only going to talk to her. Talk to everyone, because you really need to learn about all these jobs out there. I mean, if I'd known, I would have, probably majored in wine tasting or something. But
I second that. Okay, we've got a final question from the audience, and then I've got a few of my own, if that's all right. So I'm hoping to get a part-time job next year, but I'm worried that it might affect my studies. But my mum thinks it will be sorry, it will give me a great learning experience. Is she right? Skylar, you're smiling. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably agree. I worked throughout university, and I don't know, for me, I'm a lot better when I'm doing a lot, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I either need to be doing everything or nothing, and I'm more productive and enjoy it more when I'm doing quite a lot. And so for university, especially, you spend a lot of time thinking, you spend a lot of time just doing the same thing and writing. And I think you need some kind of distraction. I think exercise is a great one, but also having something outside of, where you can take your mind away for a couple hours a day is a great thing to do. I also think the responsibility you learn from it and the ability to manage money is great from having a job, especially when you're younger. And I think too, it's nice having a little pocket change. And I worked every summer from when I was 16, and I worked throughout university. And I think too, it makes it easier for when you do want to enter the workforce after university, even if it's not in the career that you want to work in, it shows that you have soft skills. So it shows that you, were able to do something as well as university and manage your time efficiently. But also that you were, showed leadership, you showed the ability to work as a team and that kind of thing. Because I know it's really hard to get your first job, and anything you can do with that respect is great, I think.
Absolutely. And actually, we had a webinar a couple of days ago on soft skills. So if you're interested in that, then check it out on our YouTube page. Really, again, it's so important. And I think we kind of think about those hard skills and what we can add on our CV, but actually soft skills are so important. So thank you for answering the questions that were sort of asked, sort of posed by the audience members, our lovely students joining us. A couple from me before we sort of close the session, if that's okay. Are you guys hiring? And if so, what subjects or what roles are you sort of hiring for? And maybe the sort of the most top 5 jobs that you're sort of looking for and hiring for right now. So Catriona, should we start off with you, then we'll work our way around?
Yeah, of course. So we are only 20 people now, so we're definitely not hiring 5 people in one go, but we are hiring a few people, certainly. And for us right now, the big push is building and growing our technical team. So we're looking from engineers, and the beauty of it really is that we use all loads of different types of engineering. So we need a civil engineer to help us work out, how thick our foundations need to be and what they need to be made of. And then we need an electrical engineer to help us with the solar side of things. So that, and a fluids engineer to help us look at how where the water's traveling through the system. So that's what we're looking to hire at the moment.
Excellent, thank you. And Skylar?
As far as I know, we're doing our regular schedule of recruiting. And so, whether that be investment banking or markets where I'm in, I'm pretty sure the bank is just doing the same that it's always done, in that we're still recruiting for spring internships. We're still recruiting for summer internships and grad jobs. So as far as I know, all of that's progressing as it would normally. And we've got a new batch of summer interns coming in a couple months or so. So, I don't think it's changed in any way. There's still lots of jobs available across the bank and in markets across sales, trading, structuring, research, that kind of thing. So yeah, the application process hasn't changed for us, I don't think.
Fabulous. And Malar?
We are always hiring. There are about 250 staff across the firm. And I think the idea is to never say you're not hiring, because you always have an open door for talent. And I think it tends to be more so on the ECM, sort of the corporate finance side, as well as my team. We're quite selective on my team because we're mean, but a good salesperson is really hard to find. And I think across in M&A as well, they're always looking for talent. So it's never a not hiring. And we do take interns on as well. We're quite good at that as well. We tend to take so many, actually. There just is a revolving door of interns, because we want everyone to understand what happens. And a lot of them find it really fun to see a trading floor and that whole thing and whole environment, and understand that, no, it's not like Wolf of Wall Street. It's actually really tough, but it's a great experience as well. So I do like to think that we're always hiring, we're always on the lookout for talent, and I think that's the same across any firm in the city right now, because it's not a closed door policy, but the important things that we look for, because it feels like all the CVs that I look at and that I see are all just, there's straight A's, or, people have really good grades and they go to uni and they do really well. A lot of people do the DOE, a lot of people, they kind of look, so what makes you just that little bit different? And I think getting a job, soft skills, really important, because it just shows that you're just not another trust fund kid, which has done the gap year and had lives on a boat somewhere, or, just all the normal things. What makes you just a little bit different? What have you done that's just going to make this CV look different from this? Because unfortunately, when at first crack, it's just a piece of paper. So something does need to look different.
Yeah.
So maybe consider that. And I think that is what makes you get a phone call or get a follow-up. That's something different that you did, or that makes you a little bit different.
And can you just give an example there of maybe a CV that you've seen and you've been like, wow, this person looks absolutely amazing, phenomenal. We have to have them in.
I've got a bad example. I always remember it.
Well,
it's funny. On the hobbies and interests, this is for an internship years ago. So hobbies and interests, he wrote fine watches, and we thought, who says that? That's really weird. You're only like 19. I mean, okay, that's odd. And ultimately, we had three that got selected to come in and present. So the way we select interns, they come in and they present an investment case, and we see if it's, how were you with the sales pitch? And did you look at the right things, how you look at a company and why we should be investing in it? And we chose someone else because that particular intern picked a company that was relevant to the companies that, similar to the companies that we would look at, rather than just a random big company, which was what the Nice Watches guy did. So I think it's really important to make sure that you research the company that you want to join and you're applying to. You make your CV, your cover letter, as tailor-made and bespoke as you possibly can to fit what they are looking for, what they do, and the vision for that company and where they're going, so that they can see that you can come on that journey with them, or could even take them or help them get further along that journey. How are you going to differentiate and add to that? Because you want to be an asset, you want to be seen as something that is going to make something better. And if you can find a way to do that, again with English, I'm sure you'll be fine.
Excellent advice. Thank you again. And I think maybe just one more from me. Can you all just sort of think back to a time, it could be at school or within the workplace, where you've had your confidence knocked, or you've experienced some form of failure? And I've done the air quotes there. Just think back to a time, and how did you go about that, and how did you go about building yourself back up and facing the world again? So can we start off with Malar, please, and then we'll go to Skylar, and then Catriona, and then we'll close.
I have a lot of these, so I'll go back to the earliest one, which is when I was doing my GCSEs, which probably, I don't, are they still called GCSEs? Yeah. Thank God. So I was doing my GCSEs, and as you recall, I wasn't very good at maths. I did try, but obviously not enough. And for my mocks, I got an E, and that was not acceptable at home for me. What I wanted, it wasn't, and nobody wanted it. And it was really awful, actually. The sadness you feel inside from feeling like a disappointment is actually quite painful. And there's no one who kind of understands it, because it's your disappointment, and everyone just thinks it's a grade or whatever it might be. So the way I got over that was right telling of my brother. I have an older brother, and he's very good at maths, like a genius, math genius, so have it. So he was saying, he said, you've got to just practice. You've got to just do these over and over and over again until you get good, until you figure out how it works, and then you can do any combination of that question because you get it. And I wanted to, but I didn't know when, or how to do it by myself. And obviously I had that awful boy who, we were not friends, but he started helping me. And I was very lucky because I have an amazing maths teacher who ran a class after school in his own time on Wednesdays for people like me who just wanted to do better. And he ran it for 1.5 hours, which I think is an incredible thing to do. And it shows real dedication. And I went to that every Wednesday. And I just worked really hard. And I remember going to get my results, and the envelope was there. And he came over to me and he just said, I smell it, it's an A, it's going to be fine. And it was just lovely. And I didn't get an E, I did get an A, so it did work out. But it's just the effort that you have to put in. And, you know, thinking something's going to fall in your lap and happen for you without you really just breaking your heart over it and, you know, working with blood, sweat and tears and just putting the time, putting the effort and putting the dedication in. Expecting it to happen without that, I think is, you know, it's a real failed expectation. So just, you know, you're going to have to work.
Yeah.
Sorry, unless you have natural aptitude. Good for you. I'm so happy for you.
That was great. Thank you. Skylar, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say even if you have a natural aptitude, you're still gonna have to work. So I really like pure maths more than I like applied maths, and university was the first time that I knew there was a difference between the two. And it was the first time that I was told to do applied maths quite a lot. So my first year university, I don't know if it's the same, but in Scotland at least, you only really have to pass your first year. It doesn't matter quite as much what the actual grade is. You just have to pass. And so I kind of thought I was better at maths than I realize I am now, and didn't put that much effort into the first half of the year, and then realized that wasn't going to work. Got a failing grade on a test and kind of freaked out quite a lot. Obviously the whole year wasn't lost at that point, but it just meant I had to work a lot harder from that point on. And I really struggled to understand it. So it wasn't so much that I just like learned the understanding behind it. I just literally memorized every single question I thought could come up on the exam, memorized every single solution for what that question could be, and went from there. But yeah, I agree. It's completely hard work. I think everyone has to fail at some point because it gives you a better understanding of what's required going forward. And I mean, also having to figure something out for yourself and sit down and just do it is a transferable skill. It's something that will help you no matter where you are in your life. I also think, you know, when you're applying for big banks in terms of applications, I had no idea really what the difference was between them. So I applied for a bunch just because I wanted a job, and definitely got a lot of rejection letters along that process as well. And that's really hard because it's just based off of your CV, right? There's only so much you can do in terms of your CV. So it's not quite so much personal, but it's still quite a hard thing to handle. But I think just knowing that everyone goes through that process is a good thing to have in mind.
Excellent. Thank you again. Catriona?
Again, very similar experience on my end. My first year of university, I not only found it really hard, I also spent a lot more time socializing than I did working, and my exam grades at the end of my first year really reflected that. And, you know, it was just the first time where I'd done really badly, and it just, like Marla was saying, nobody really feels it except you, and it's not the end of the world. But yeah, anyway, it was a wake-up call. And then there's just nothing you can do but just knuckle down and work hard and just go over the stuff that you didn't understand the first time round. Just spend a lot of hours in the library. Working.
Work even harder, I suppose.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. What an amazing conversation we just had. I really loved that. I really enjoyed it. So I just want to take an opportunity to thank the audience at home for joining us, and to all the lovely students. We hope that you found it useful. And thank you to our guest speakers for such insightful and engaging discussions, and for answering the questions so wonderfully as well. Thank you for your time. I know you're all really busy, but thank you very much. So guys at home, you will be asked to leave some feedback so we can continue to improve our Founders for Schools digital services. So please do complete those. We take them really seriously. We read everything. So please do have a look at the feedback and the surveys. And look out for the recordings on our YouTube channel as well. This one will go up hopefully by this afternoon, if not by early tomorrow morning. So our YouTube channel is Founders for Schools. And if you aren't already following us, we are on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. So please do continue to share our work amongst your friends and family. Our next session is on Monday the 8th at 11:30, and it's a role model event, so slightly different to the Maths4Girls event. So if you're interested in joining, so just please pop onto our website and click on the top banner for further details, and we hope to see you there. So we're going to leave it there. Thank you guys so much for your time. Really enjoyed that, and hopefully we'll see you at a future event. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.